All right, so for solving quadratics by factoring, okay, there's a couple things I want us to talk about first, okay? So we're going to recap how to factor by grouping and by how to using the shortcut. So first things first, we're going to look at this problem here, okay? So the first step we have to do when solving by factoring is we have to set it equal to 0. So we're going to take this and we're going to do x squared plus 3x minus 10 equals 0. That is the first thing we have to do. Because remember, that's where the name 0 comes from. It's where the quadratic, the y value is 0. So instead of us having a y, we're going to replace it with 0. That's what it means when we have a solution. It's where the x value that makes y 0. Now, that's step 1. Step 2 is let's factor it. So if you remember, whenever we looked at these, this is when we had to figure out what times what gives you a times c, and what plus what gives you our b value. So in this problem, what is our a times c? Negative 10. That's what goes to the top. We're trying to figure out what times what gives us negative 10, and what plus what gives us our b. What is b?
3.
3. You can organize it either way, whichever way you want to do, that's fine. What multiplies to give us negative 10, but will add to give us 3?
Negative 5.
So it's 2 and 5. Which signs needs to be what, though? Negative 2, positive 5. Now, what is a in this particular problem? 1. So if I wanted to, could I use a shortcut?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a shortcut for when a is 1. Now, I am going to quickly recap the way that works both ways, though. That works all the time. And I'm going to do by grouping for this problem, then we can do the shortcut for any other ones like it. So we're going to rewrite it as x squared minus 2x plus 5x minus 10 is equal to 0. And then we're going to group. If I group the first two terms, what is our GCF? And what will be left inside the parentheses?
X minus 2.
Perfect. Now for the second half, what is our GCF? 5. Which will leave us with?
X minus 2.
So what part is the same between those? What part's left over? And we're going to have still equal 0. So we have it in fully factored form now. Okay, I want y'all to take a second and set y'all's pencils down because I want us to recap something that y'all know, but I don't know if you know that you know. Okay, so we're going to talk real quickly about something called the zero product rule. Okay, so if I have 5 times x equals 0, what does x have to be? 0. Okay. If I have, let's see, 5 times, let's not do that. Let's do, we have x times y equals 0. If I give you that example, and then I said y is equal to 3, what would x have to be?
0.
So if I said x is equal to 3, what would y have to be?
0.
Okay, the zero product rule just tells if we have two things multiplied together, at least one of them has to be, that equals 0, at least one of them has to be 0 to make it equal 0, right? So let's think about what would happen if we have this. If we have x plus 1, how would I solve that? What would I do to solve it?
Minus 1 from 0.
Minus 1 from both sides, and I would get x equals negative 1. Okay? So, what if I had 5 times x plus 1 equals 0? Can 5 be what equals 0? No, right? Because does 5 equal 0? What does that mean this would have to equal? 0. That's all the zero product rule means, is that if two things are multiplied together and they equal 0, at least one of them has to equal 0. That kind of makes sense, right? And like, if two things multiply to equal 0, at least one of them has to be 0. So we kind of use that rule just a little bit whenever we're solving by factoring, okay? Because we have two things that are being multiplied together to equal 0. So what we do is we actually end up looking at both of these pieces in relation to them equaling 0, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to say x minus 2 equals 0, and we're going to say x plus 5 equals 0. We're going to do both pieces because either of them could equal 0. And so what could I do to solve x minus 2 equals 0? Add 2 to both sides. So we get x is equal to 2. For x plus 5 equals 0, how would I solve that? So I would get x is equal to -5. So then we have our solutions. All that is left for us to do is just write them as a solution set. So how would I write those as a solution set? -5, comma 2. All right. So that is how we solve by factoring. Okay? We factor just like normal. And then we take each piece and set it equal to 0 and solve those pieces. So I want us to go ahead and look at number 1. Okay, so for number 1, we are looking at x squared plus 4x plus 3 equals 0. Yes, ma'am.
So how do you know -5 is first?
Because it's smaller. Because we do in numerical order. So we do smallest negative to biggest number. Okay, so now for number 1. We have to figure out what multiplies to give us a times c and adds to give us 4 again. So what times what? What is a times c? What is b? Okay, 3 times 1. Okay, now in this problem, what is our a value? That means we can use the shortcut method, right? Does anybody remember what I could do from here to find my answer using the shortcut?
X plus 1.
And x plus 3. But that only works when a is 1. A has to be 1 for us to be able to shortcut it like that. If a is not 1, can we do that shortcut? We have to do the grouping. Okay, now we are going to go ahead and look. So what do I need to do from here? I've got a factored form. Now what? Separate it and set them equal to 0. So do x plus 1 equals 0 and x plus 3 equals 0.
And then it would be x equals -1 and 2.
We would get that by subtracting 1 and subtracting 3.
So it'd be -3, -1.
-3, -1. Just like that. Okay, so that is how we can solve by factoring. Okay, this is a method that will work as long as we don't have a prime trinomial. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and look at number 2. Actually, I lied. Let's see.
Look at number 3.
No, we're going to do number 2. All right, so number 2. What multiplies to give it? What is a times c? What is b?
11.
What multiplies to give us 24 but adds to give us 11?
8 and 3.
8 and 3. Can I use the shortcut for this one?
Yes.
Why?
Because x is equal to a is 1.
A is 1. Okay. So how would I write this using the shortcut?
X plus 8.
And then we have equal to 0. Okay, now I need to look at each piece equal to 0. So I do x plus 8 equals 0 and x plus 3 equal to 0.
It's just the same thing as
Same thing as, what do I do for x plus 8 equals 0? What do I do?
Subtract 8.
Subtract 8. When we subtract 8, we get x equals, for this right here, we have x plus 3 equals 0. How would I do that?
Subtract 3.
So x equals? So how would we write our solution set? X equals negative 8, comma, negative 3. All right, now I want y'all to try number 3 for me. What multiplies to give us negative 2 but adds to give us 1?
Negative 1.
So negative 1, positive 2. So how would I use the shortcut to write our factored form?
X plus 2. X plus 1.
And if you wrote that in the opposite order I did, if you said x plus 2 times x minus 1, you're still right. It doesn't matter the order you do. Now we split it into 2 pieces. So we do x minus 1 equals 0. And we do x plus 2 equals 0. I want y'all to solve both of those. Stop it.
I don't know what you're talking about. What do I do then?
You sound like a frog. Hooting. All right, our solution is going to be what? Negative 2, 1. All right, yes.
How do we know, like, for the negative 2, 1, do we go from greatest?
Smallest to biggest, yeah. That is all we have to do to write our solution set. Now I want us to go ahead and look at number 5. Okay, so for number 5, what is A times C?
21.
21. So we have to figure out what multiplies to give us 21 and what adds to give us negative 10. What are the factors that do that? Negative 7, negative 3. Can I use the shortcut? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Because our A is 1. So how would I use the shortcut to write our answer in factored form?
X minus 3.
Now, to get our solution, what should we do? Take each piece, set them equal to 0. To solve x minus 3 equals 0, what do we do? To solve x minus 7 equals 0, what do I do? So to write our solution set, we have x is equal to 3, 7. Because we just go from smallest number to biggest number. All right, now y'all do number 7 for me.
I suck at doing this little X thing.
Yeah. So you still start?
Oh, my bad.
So it's just spell the problems right. Change your word.
What numbers do I use? What numbers do I use?
I told you to check your
Negative 5 and negative 5.
Would it be negative 5 and negative 5? Positive 5 and positive 5. Negative 5 and negative 5 will be our answer, okay? But we're going to talk about what happens here. So to write our solution, we do x plus 5 times x plus 5 equals 0, okay? So if we split this up, we get x plus 5 equals 0, which if we solve that, we get x equals
Negative.
And if I do the other side, x plus 5 equals 0, we get the same thing. So in this case, how many solutions do we actually have? One. Okay, so we only have to write negative 5. And if I was talking about what the graph of this looks like, on what axis would the vertex have to be on? The x-axis, right? We would only have one solution. Our graph would be over here. If there's negative 5, it would have to look like that. All right, now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to flip to the back. So on the back, we're going to look at what happens whenever we have ones that are not trinomials. Okay, so we have binomials we've got to factor. So those first 4 are simply GCF questions. These are just GCF questions. Okay, that's all the first 4 are. Okay, now the second 4. What was the other kind of binomial we had?
Oh, polynomial.
What other kind of way did we have to factor a binomial? If it has 2 perfect squares and a minus sign, that's called what? When it has a minus, it's called a?
I don't know.
Starts with a D.
Difference.
Difference of?
Squares.
It's a difference of squares. Okay. So we're going to factor both sets of these. So for the first 4, we just take out a GCF. So we are going to do 9 and 11. So for number 9, what is our GCF? When we take out a GCF, it is just like dividing by our GCF. So x squared divided by x will leave us with, and then negative 8x divided by x would leave us with. Okay, now, same thing. We still have to split this with our negative, or with our equal to 0. So we'll do x equals 0 and x minus 8 equals 0. To solve x equals 0, do I need to do anything?
No.
Perfect. To solve x minus 8 equals 0, what do I do?
Add 8.
So how many solutions do I have? 2. So we're going to do x is equal to
0, 8.
0, 8.
That's all.
That's it. Okay, let's look at number 11 together. What is the GCF for number 11? And we take out that 6x from both pieces. What are we going to be left with? So now we have to do each piece. So we're going to do 6x equals 0. How do I solve that? Divide by 6. When we divide by 6, we get x equals 0. For the second half, we have x minus 2 equals 0. How do I solve that?
2 on both sides.
And so we get x equals. So we write our solution as 0, 2. I want y'all to do 10 and 12 for me. Do 10 and 12 for me real quick. Yes. I really have to remember to bring WD-40 for this chair. It's too squeaky.
I'll forever hate this bracket. I just want to write
I
over.
like drawing them.
No, I draw a kiss face every time, or I draw a mountain. I can never do them.
I see this. Mine has a big nose.
One of the other teachers said she tells people to draw a face. Do a forehead, a nose, and a chin.
I just do like a backwards
It
stroke.
looks like you.
A backwards, that works too.
Yeah, because I can't draw that.
Okay. I'm done there, just draw a squiggly line.
Yeah, that's fine.
That works too.
That's
What was our GCF for number 10?
3x.
Which leaves us with?
X plus 5.
So once we solve that, what is our solution?
Negative 5, 0.
Okay, but for number 12, what is our GCF?
2x.
What does that leave us with?
And you gotta do 2x.
So we do 2x equals 0,
Yeah.
which gives us x equals.
0.
Then we have to do 4x minus 3.
Equals 0.
To solve that, what do I do?
Add 3. And then divide by 4.
And then we have to divide it by 4. So we get x equals 3/4.
Oh.
And so our answer is just 0, 3/4.
So we can get like a fraction.
You can get fractions. I actually expect y'all to get fractions.
Would you rather us have it in fraction or a decimal?
Decimal.
Fraction.
Yeah, we're gonna get better at it.
Okay, so that's another reason why using it to solve factoring can be better sometimes than graphing, because when you're looking at the table, does it give you your decimals?
No.
It doesn't. It only gives you whole numbers, right? It'll skip right over that solution because it's not a whole number when we look at the table. So are you going to think to plug in 3/4 to see if that's a solution? No. So that's why factoring can be helpful, is because it can find those places that aren't whole numbers that are solutions. All right, so now we're going to look at our difference of squares. So for our difference of squares questions, we're going to do 13 and 15 together. So for 13, okay, what squares to give you x squared? What squares to give you 64? What signs do I need to make a negative? Positive and a negative. And so that's all we have to do to factor those. And then we do each piece. So we do x plus 8 equals 0, and we do x minus 8 equals 0. Negative 8 and 8. And usually when you have a difference of squares, you're going to end up with the same number, just different signs. That's one of the properties of difference of squares. So if we look at 15, what squares to give us 4x squared? What squares to give us 81? What signs do I need? And then we do each piece. So we do 2x plus 9 equals 0. How do I solve that?
You subtract on.
Then what? Divide by 2. So I get x is equal to negative 9/2. And then for the other half, we do 2x minus 9 equals 0. How do I solve that? You get 2x equals 9, then what? And we still get 9/2. So our solution for this one is going to be x is equal to 9/2, positive 9/2. So again, graphing would never give us that solution, because if we use a table, even if we plug in values, we're never going to plug in 9/2. It's just not going to be something you plug in.
I need to like
All right.
scope a smaller font.
You mean when you're writing?
Yeah.
All right, for numbers 14 and 16, I want y'all to do those.
Oh.
5.
No.
Mm-hmm.
I know a good movie that we should watch at the end of the year.
Hmm?
I know a good movie
What?
that we should watch at the end of the year. Let's fall in the Holy Grail.
No, we're not watching that.
My husband loves that movie.
Exactly. It's an amazing movie.
All right,
Literally like all
7. For 14, what squares to give you 25? What signs do we need? Okay, so once you set each of these equal to 0 and solve them, what is your solution? Negative 5 and 5. For 16, what squares to give you 9x squared? What squares to give you 49? What signs do you need? Then you set both equal to 0 and solve them. And I'll give you a second to finish that if you hadn't already. And so once you solve those, what does x equal? And positive 7 over 3. There we go. All right. That last section, okay, we're still doing the exact same thing. It's just these questions down here are not in standard form. Okay, so we have to put them in standard form and make the right side equal 0. Okay, so let's look. To make the right side equal 0, I need to take this 21 and I need to move it. What should I do to do that? Subtract 21 on both sides.
With that, Edwin.
So we get x squared plus 4x minus 21 equals 0. Okay, we are not going to solve all of these right now. I'm going to give you a few of them to go back and solve at the end. We're just going to go over how to put them in standard form. So for 18, what do I need to move? When I put this in standard form, where does that 4x need to go? In the middle. So x squared minus 4x minus 45 equals 0. All right, 19. What do I need to move? Where does it need to go? So we get x squared. Yeah, we combine them. What do we get? Minus 64 equals 0. Okay, for 20, I need to move 2 things. What 2 things do I need to move? How do I move 4x? And then minus 1 on both sides too. So we do x squared negative 10 minus 4.
Oh.
Negative 14x. Then 49 minus 1 is going to be? Equals 0. And then we have for 21. Okay.
How does that work?
So, a thing about factoring. You want your x squared term, you want your a to be positive to make your life significantly easier. If you can keep that front term positive, it makes your life easier. So, knowing that, would I move the 11x over here or the x squared over here? That's what I would do to make it easier on myself. Okay, then I had to move the 8x as well. So I get 10x squared minus 8x equals 0. And then for 22, what should I move? So I get 16x squared minus 9. So I want y'all to factor and solve 19, 20, 21, and 22. And I'm going to put the solution sets on here. And I want y'all to make sure you get those. And if you don't get those, ask me. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. When she gets back. Hey, Taylor. And once you do those 4, we are done for today.